Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. So we met James. Mike, you're next, if you'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike Applegarth. I am the City Council Office Director.
And Nick.
Hi, Nick Dirksen. I'm the Economic Development Director and also the Director of the Redevelopment Agency for Sandy.
And I know when I call you Mayor, that gives your title away, but Mayor, still introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kurt Bradburn. I have the privilege of serving as your mayor of Sandy City. My job is to help oversee the operations and execution of the budget and the laws and ordinances that our city council passes.
Thank you. Allison?
Allison Stroud, and City Council member for District 2.
Chris?
I'm Chris Nickel, and I'm City Council, District 3.
And Scott?
Scott Earl, Parks and Recreation Director.
Do any of you feel like breaking out into the Brady Bunch song?
Totally. I'm with you.
Because I feel like I could just do that little song and introduce, here's a story. Anyway.
I know it. That's pretty scary.
I know. And my name is Marcy Hausman. I am a City Council member at large. So we appreciate again all of you who joined us. We hope that there will continue to be people join and feel very comfortable entering into this casual conversation. So at this point, I'd love to invite our department heads to speak on a high level, 5-minute summary of what's been happening with your department and specifically the impacts you would like to share considering the current circumstances. So James, if we could start with you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. As I mentioned, my name is James Sorensen. I'm the Community Development Director. I'll tell you just a little bit about my department and a little bit about what we do and what we're faced with right now. Currently, my department houses 27 employees. We are over planning and zoning, business licensing. We do everything from permitting at the counter to inspections in the field and so forth. I have 5 building inspectors. We have 4 code enforcement officers as well who work in the field. That pretty much is what our department does. When you come into our department, a lot of people are interface with us in the field, either through code enforcement or looking to get a water heater or a furnace or something inspected, or have our guys come out and look at a roof or whatever that may be. And going through the times that we're going through now, we haven't experienced a ton of difference other than for us, we have continued to operate. When I say not much difference, there's a lot of difference in how we operate, but we have, as a department, have continued to operate and serve the residents. We've continued to do all the inspections that are called in. We do them a little differently. For instance, if we do, say a resident calls in and say they got a new water heater or a furnace and they want us to come and inspect that, because a lot of times that's in the basement, what we'll do is actually do that through a phone and have them sometimes video that and send that in to us, and we can do an electronic inspection that way. If they have a basement that opens up, we can sometimes go in that way, which makes it a little less intrusive, and so there's no interaction really with residents who are there. Also, we have continued to do housing inspections. We continue to see development continue to move forward. Our inspectors, as they go out in the field, they work from their trucks. In the morning, they get in their trucks are clean, sanitized. They wear masks and gloves, and when they go and do inspections in the field with developers, they meet with one person in the field where there used to be a whole bunch of contractors on site. The contractors clear the site now as we follow the rules, and the inspector goes and does the inspection. So we have found ways to continue to work forward and continue to comply with all the protocols that have been set to keep both our inspectors safe and the residents safe and those who are building homes. When someone comes into our office, we are trying to do most things by appointment only, but we do know that residents have to come in from time to time. And when they do come in, we have 6-foot spacings and so forth, and we wear a mask to protect the residents and ourselves. And we will continue to do that, and we continue to fulfill the needs of the residents in the best ways that we can. We've moved most of our operations, for the most part already, to electronically. We'll do plan checks for buildings and so forth, all electronically, so there is no contact, and that's been working out very well. Planning and zoning does the same thing when they're doing things with zoning and so forth for residents. Most things we can do electronically now. A couple things we still have to meet, and we'll make sure that we continue to follow the protocols. But we have found ways to, although they're different, but actually we found some new efficiencies that even when this is over, we plan to use and go forward with, because we found them to be very effective in what we're doing. So that's just a quick rundown of what we're doing in my department.
I really appreciate that. And I think it's a unique time where we're discovering innovation, and we're discovering things that we're doing out of necessity right now that will actually benefit us moving forward. So I appreciate you giving examples of that. Thank you, James. Nick, can we move to you? Oh, I think you're on mute, Nick.
There we go. I was. I'm Nick Dirksen, the Economic Development Director, and also we house the Redevelopment Agency. We're a total staff of 3, so we're not a big department, but we obviously handle recruitment, retention, marketing for the city, as well as administer all of the RDA programs and RDA project areas. Obviously, the biggest role for us of late has been working with businesses to help them both locally and at the county and state level with various SBA and other kinds of funding programs. So I sit on a couple of task forces that have been working with businesses to help them access those dollars. A big part of what our office will be dealing with is the recovery aspect of this, is businesses, as they just this week start opening, and helping them get back to recovery. So working with our communications department and the community development department and others as we try recovery and get our businesses back up and operating and headed in the right direction. And so that's a big part of what our office will be handling in this hat. Today I talked to, for example, I've been reaching out to businesses personally. Our office has probably contacted about 400 now. I did 25 or so today, among other things, but that's been really great just to hear where they're at, different size companies and businesses and where they're at. And, you know, there's a great attitude out there. Everyone's very positive. This has not been fun, but they have a really good attitude. And so as I talk to them, that's always heartwarming to hear that. So as we get to the recovery phase and we start looking at programs and measurements, which is really what I've been gearing up for right now, is working on how are we going to handle some recovery operations for these businesses. It's going to be one thing to handle the urgent need, which is what most of the SBA loans and other kinds of programs have been doing. But recovery is a little different, and so how that will be handled and the way we will provide assistance there could be different. Every type of company and business out there, as far as types of businesses, recovery is going to be different for them. I mean, a restaurant's recovery is going to be very different than someone who does manufacturing. So that's part of the nuance in the recovery side. But anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at and what we're doing. And obviously, we're still working with our big projects. They're not dead. We still have a hotel coming. We still have office buildings coming. I spoke with almost everyone today except for one developer who I was just played phone tag with him all day, but never was able to catch him. But they're all moving forward. Nothing is on hold. Nothing has been killed or dead and not going to happen. They're planning on moving forward. Commercial lenders are starting to open up money again and provide lending, particularly to retailers. That actually is coming online faster than we were expecting, but CMBS loans are starting to be issued again. So that's good news. That means that the retail lending industry has some measure of confidence in how we're going to come out of this. So that's seen as a good thing. So watching those kinds of things are very important in the recovery phase. Thank you.
Thanks. Great update and tremendous outreach from your team. So we appreciate that, the support you're offering our area businesses. Thank you. All right, Scott, you're on.
Okay, hello. Thank you for having us. This is awesome, and give you guys an update of what we're doing in Parks and Recreation. So my name is Scott Earl. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. We have Parks and Trails. We have a Recreation Department division. We have Alta Canyon Sports Center, our golf course, and our cemetery. So I've been really, really proud of our parks staff. They've been Parks and Trails open since the beginning of this and coming to work every day and working hard. And it's nice to be able to see our citizens enjoying the trails as much as they are in our parks, and doing a good job as far as stewardship in the parks and on the trails too. So it's kind of heartwarming to those 25 full-time employees to know that they're appreciated and supported by our citizens and be able to provide that service through this period of time. In our recreation division, we have 6 full-time employees, and it's been a little bit rocky in recreation because we have 3,500 soccer players that we haven't been able to start a soccer season yet. We keep pushing the date out and out and out. Finally, we've gotten to the date of May 11th is go or no go, but to be honest with you, it's probably a no-go, and we're probably going to start focusing on fall soccer, and we will do refunds to everybody that has paid, and hopefully they'll come back and sign up with us for fall, and we can have a great fall season. But our recreation division is working on some triathlons and some 5Ks and different race events and things like that that people can do virtually and still participate in kind of recreation events, which is fun. Up at Alta Canyon, so they have the big Olympic-sized swimming pool up there, and the date for that is Memorial Day weekend, Saturday at noon. And it's probably not going to open to the public unless we have some type of a miracle between now and then. But we are planning on opening it up for lap swim. Our division manager up there has figured out a way to take that pool, it's Olympic size, to take it from 8 lanes to 24 lanes. And so that's less than 50% capacity of the pool, which is the state regulation. And so as long as we have our lifeguards in place, we should be able to open it up for lap swim and fitness type stuff. So that'll be good. As far as Alta Canyon goes with their youth camps and things, the big day is June 1st for that. We're trying to get approval to staff up for that now. We have about 150 kids registered for that program, and we're hoping to be able to provide service to them. It fits within the state guidelines. At our golf course, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got reopened. We were open during the early spring. It was a really, really good spring, and then closed for a few weeks. And then we were able to reopen again. And the golf staff, like James was saying, really came up with some good ingenuity and some smartness and thinking outside the box. They were able to open up with online payments, and then when the person got there, they texted the pro shop, said, "Hey, I'm here," and then they left their window down in the car, and we called them from the pro shop to the tee box, and so that was walking only. On Monday, we opened it up to 1 person per cart, and so we've been running with that since Monday, and that's been working out really well. Lots of golfers. This weekend will be super crazy at the golf course, the way the weather and stuff is. But the staff down there is doing a fantastic job, and they're working really, really hard. And then in our cemetery, we're getting ready for Memorial Day. So the crews, even with the scaled back crews, have edged about 6,000 headstones, maybe 6,100 headstones. And I just want to make sure it was a nice Memorial Day for our residents and citizens, and to reflect and be there with their loved ones. And then we do still have ongoing projects that are paid for with special revenue fees that come from park and trail fees from development in the city. We have 6 or 7, fairly big size projects happening right now. And the one on the radar for the immediate future will be the Bell Canyon Preservation Trailhead. So that's my update. I'll just look forward to any questions that may come. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And if you'll just pass on our gratitude to your staff. I know with the additional expectations of maintaining and cleanliness and safety, that's been a quite a load for your team. So thank you, and pass it on to them.
I will, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're at that place where we kind of turn the conversation over to those who've joined us. We really want everything to feel like it's driven by the questions you have, the insights you'd like to share. And if I remember correctly, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, what we need you to do is take advantage of the raise your hand feature, which allows us to know that you have something you'd like to share with our group here. We can do it that way, but I'm also seeing a question pop up in the box. So Mike, do you want to guide us a little on what your recommendation would be?
Yeah, if you would like to talk live, just use that raise hand feature and we'll call you in the order that the raised hands appear. If you'd prefer not to talk and you just want to throw a question out for the group, feel free to do that. I'm happy to read your questions or comments. If you decide to submit a written comment or question and you want to talk after that, that's fine too. Just use that raise hand feature. Not seeing any raised hands right now, but I see Kathy Spuck has submitted a question, and I guess to get us going, I'll go ahead and read that. And Kathy, feel free to raise the hand if you want to jump in and add anything. She is asking about the status of Kuwaharas and also the Reams property. And then she says, I know the budget is tight and that code enforcement officers serve huge areas. Is there any way to increase homeowner awareness of the expectations of the neighborhood preservation policy and enforcement? The looks of the neighborhood have an influence on the crime rates and home values. Many Sandy neighborhoods are aging, and it shows. If maintenance is stressed, age doesn't have to be a deterrent. So Kuwaharas, Reams, and code enforcement. Somebody like to field that?
I can quickly give an up. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, James. I was going to
give
say,
an
I could
update on the
probably,
Reams.
yeah, and I can probably tackle Kuwahara.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, the Reams site has been through some proposals over the last year, and I can give you just a quick update. It started out as the whole site, 10 acres, came in as a proposal to be housing. Since that time, as you're aware or may not be aware, there has been other proposals on the site. And currently the site now is split into about a 6 acre to 4 acre split. The 6 acres is going to be built as a Challenger school, and that is a middle school. Will house, it's about 1.5 stories high, so pretty low impact type school, but will house mainly, I think actually it's now that I think about it, it's all grades in that school. And the progress on that is they have recently been to what we call our planning committee team, who represents each department. Someone does and goes through all the issues. They're currently about just through their engineering and are getting very close to going to planning commission for their first round of site plan approval with the planning commission on that piece of property. The Reams property furthest to the south is the 4 acres there. That was approved as a PUD 10, and that means you can do townhomes, for instance. There is a proposal that was approved actually as the zoning. There is a proposal that is being prepared now by a group who is proposing 40 townhome units on that 10 acres. They haven't filed an application yet, but we know they're in the process and in the mode of doing that. And in the next couple of months, I would imagine that they would be ready to go before the planning commission for subdivision and site plan approval on those 40 units. I will tell you that both of those projects, as they move forward, will have neighborhood meetings, and the neighbors will be notified on both projects and offered to participate in most likely a Zoom meeting just like this to hear the site plan issues and to go through that with the prior to it going to the planning commission. I would think that would be in the next calendar, and probably the next maybe 3 weeks for the townhome project. I'm not as sure in that one as when they're ready to do that, but they are progressing, and that is where that site is moving.
Okay, do you want me to give a quick update on Kuwahara? Obviously we all love Alex and Sarah. They're a great asset to our community. So we have been working extensively with them for the last couple of months. We meet every other week. They have several representatives helping them. They also attend the meetings, as well as 2 of our council members, Brooke Christensen and Monica Zoltansky, participate in those. So we really have the full force of the city trying to help them come into compliance. The one thing we just can't do as a city is waive requirements, many of which are state or federal or international codes. We're just not in the business of allowing one business to do that and others not. And it really is a public safety issue. It's about keeping all of our residents safe. And so anyway, to that end, we're trying to do everything we can to bring them into compliance. We're meeting often. We're available to meet with their engineers, et cetera. So really the next step for them is they're working on their piece to get their site plan turned in and kind of go from there. The city, to protect its interest, is being proactive. Things like red tagging buildings that haven't been inspected, so residents are aware when they go into a building that it has not been deemed structurally sound by the city. We're monitoring, kind of food handling, sales of animals, things like that. We're reporting those to the county health department that would be the ones to regulate those. So anyway, we just want to make sure everybody's safe and protected whilst enjoying that amazing business. So we're both kind of pursuing our own paths, I guess, so to speak. Kuwahara is open and is conducting business. We're not going to, I won't at least, maybe a judge will or something at some point, but we're not going to ever tell them, they can't do something, but we will protect the rest of our residents by making sure we do our best to document what has or hasn't been done. And ultimately, our goal is to not be on separate tracks, but to eventually get them to a point where they are a licensed legal business operating in Sandy, and we can all just enjoy them together. So that's where we're at. Alex and Sarah have been phenomenal and extremely helpful and courteous throughout the process. And I hope that we're close to a resolution. So, and I guess James and I can probably also tackle the third one. Well, I'll let James speak to his code enforcement guys, and then we could talk about the policy generally as a city, I guess. But
so we do have 4 code enforcement officers and 1 person in who takes calls. We do field about 12 to 1,300 calls a year and cases a year in code enforcement in the city. The mission of our code enforcement is to safeguard the life, health, and property and preserve city housing and really enhance the neighborhoods and the vitality. So I do agree with Kathy in that it is critical. Excuse me. Code enforcement is critical because as our housing stock does continue to age, we have more code enforcement generally to do, and that's natural as a city and a community continues to mature and grow. We don't have as much new housing stock. We have a lot of older housing stock that requires more maintenance and more upkeep and so forth. So it's natural that we'll have more cases and more things to work on as code enforcement as we continue to grow as a city. Our code enforcement officers are dedicated, they go out, but the one thing that we do try to do is we don't, it's not a police force going out there and handcuffing people and doing this or that. We go out first and we try to educate our citizens to the code and help them understand that our ultimate goal is to help them and to collaborate with them to get their properties in compliance. And a lot of times, and I know that the mayor has pushed this, it's through education. Much of it is if we can go out and educate at the beginning, a big percent of people, once they find out what the code is and, oh, I am violating this, they will fix it. If they don't fix it, then we have other mechanisms like noticing, and we'll go further if we have to. If it comes to a point where we just cannot get compliance, we'll write a citation, which starts a proceedings to a court where a judge will decide what they do with their property. But that is not our first priority. In fact, that's down the list. And we would much rather educate and help people help themselves first, because if we as a code enforcement have to do that with everyone, we will not be successful. The way we're successful is by educating and help people want to keep their neighborhood clean and want to keep their houses clean and want to have a good maintained neighborhood to keep the values up and to keep the neighborhood crime free. I mean, obviously it does help. So those are our goals really, is to start with education and help people want to do that first. And we'll go down past if we have to bring compliance and to help people get into compliance. But certainly we want to work with residents and help them come into compliance. We're there to help them and to educate and to work with them to do that.
You want to add anything to that, Mayor?
Well, yeah, no, that was perfect. James
I
actually touched
agree.
on
That was
both.
really good.
So, yeah, I just want to emphasize again that we do appreciate and rely heavily on neighbors and residents sort of tips or letting us know. And so one of the easiest ways to do that is to use our CityServe app. So it's really easy to just let code enforcement know that there's a problem by just, either taking a picture or just writing a quick note in CityServe and sending that off. And then we have a way to track it. And anyway, it's a seamless process. But like James was talking about, we really do try to focus on education, just because I don't know anybody that, things never de-escalate once notices and citations and litigation gets involved. So ultimately, we just want to help people come into compliance, and the easiest way to do that, we feel like, is through education and that collaborative working together. So that's it.
Oh, I think I was muted. Thanks for that explanation, and I echo your sentiments about education. I think when we help people understand expectations and then let them know that we're supporting their efforts to come into compliance, I think that's the right approach. So I thank you for those efforts. I don't see any additional hands raised, and I don't see any additional questions. So we'll just kind of pause at this time and remind everyone that tonight, this conversation is really driven by your questions and your insights. We want to hear from you. Your voice is really important to us. So we'll just kind of pause and invite those who are here with us to share, either through the chat box or through raising your hand.
We have a raised hand.
Raised hand. Okay, let's see if I can do this correctly. All right, Kathy, I'm gonna turn your microphone on. All right, there you go, Kathy.
I'm on my phone tonight. First of all,
Hey.
thanks for your efforts on the budget last night. I thought you guys did an excellent job of dealing with a very precarious situation. So hats off for working together and doing that last night, and for having this meeting today. And I think my comment on code enforcement is maybe that education, if we can, I teach school. I know there's people that read stuff and try, and people that don't. I mean, that's the way it goes. Like, can we maybe get more in the Sandy Journal about home preservation and kind of what the expectations are out to the general public before they become an issue? Maybe that this is, we expect the lawns to be, not a foot high and that kind of stuff. I think maybe it's because I've been out walking more because the gym's closed. It's like, and I live on the edge of historic Sandy. So, you just, as you start walking, I think you see and notice more than you have as far as, just junky yards and trailers and that kind of stuff. So I know code enforcement can only do so much, and I appreciate their approach, but maybe if we can get the word out in the Sandy newsletter, the Sandy Journal, and maybe pull some of those, a section a month from that code or something, and kind of educate people, that might be helpful.
Yeah, Kathy, that's a great idea. Actually, I'll take that and run with it a little bit. I'll work with our communications director and James's group, and maybe what we'll do is when, during our outdoors months, maybe more like March through September, maybe we'll do like a monthly, just like a top 10, yard or lawn or code enforcement things to remember, and we can periodically send that out through our social channels. We'll put it in the newsletter. But that's a really good idea. I like that.
I think that would be helpful. I'm just back on the board of my HOA, and we're rewriting our CCNRs, and I'm like, well, the city says, because they're trying to do things that aren't appropriate, and they're going, I didn't know that, and I'm going, well, if this is the leadership, they don't know that, then somewhere
Yeah,
there's
that's a good idea. We'll yes, we will follow through on that.
Is there a way we could also,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Kathy. I was just wondering if we could also put it on the website. I was just pulling up and looking through.
Yeah.
I mean, briefly, James, I was back and forth a little bit, but looking at, and I know that we're about to get a major
New
overhaul with our website, but if there's something that residents can look at that can easily see, I mean, we know we're not supposed to let weeds get 10 feet tall and mow the lawns and whatever, but if there was something there that was easy for residents to go to, is that something, is that a TK
Yeah,
question?
it's
Is
very
that,
We,
okay.
we've had maintenance pages and so forth, but that's a good idea. And we could do it according to the seasons. I mean, now you have the seasons of high grass, you have the seasons of weed right off the bat, and just, we do door hangers as well. So
I think that's seasons of weeds. We don't have a season of weed in Sandy yet. Just want to be clear about that.
Not yet.
On the record.
put the yes on that.
It is still illegal for recreative purposes. So. But yeah, no, that's a good idea too for winter because we have just as many code violations in winter. So we could, alternate through the different seasons. But
Yeah.
yes, we can certainly, the new website, it will be really easy to add those types of things. So.
And I appreciate you working with Kuaharas. It's like I can see both sides of it. I mean, I go there and I enjoy my time there, but yet I have to come up Pioneer Avenue to get to my house. And I can't tell you how many times somebody in front of me stops dead in their tracks to turn into Kuaharas because they didn't know exactly where it was or because the parking lot's full, and then I'm slamming on my brakes behind them. So I've seen both sides of it, and I appreciate how you're trying to work with them.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm headed out to support the neighborhood business. The iceberg truck's coming to the neighborhood tonight, so we're all going to 6 feet support the neighborhood and some kid's birthday party. So thanks for your service.
Thank you,
Thanks
Kathy,
for
for
being here,
joining us
Kathy.
tonight. Great conversation. All right, anyone else who's joining us have something they'd like to share, question, insight?
Concerns? Pretty easy and straightforward. I will throw in, as I was looking, James, at your section of the current website, I did pull up with Parks and Recreation. So anybody, if you're interested in about our River Oaks Golf Course and what they're doing to accommodate, they've got a great page, a great link on there with a phone number and kind of what they're doing, because I know it went by pretty quickly. I was writing down frantically, but Scott did a great job with the recap on that. But it had some Alta Canyon, it had our River Oaks Golf Course. So once again, the city website in the Parks and Rec section under departments has that information as well. So if you're interested or need more a recap on that.
And since we don't have anyone with a hand raised, I'll just take the opportunity. I just want to express appreciation. I've seen some of the great forward thinking that Scott and his team are doing, thinking ahead. So responding in the now, but also thinking ahead to summer activities and really thinking about what innovation is possible there. And so I don't know, Scott, if you want to speak to that at all, but I do want to let people know that you and I have had some conversations, and I've been really impressed with your innovation and your problem solving and your flexibility. I know this is true for all of our departments of being responsive to what does it look like now, and also knowing this, this could be a 2-week window, this could be a 4-week window. So a lot of agility being shown by all of our department heads. But that's a conversation you and I've had is looking ahead to the summer.
Yep. Thank you. And I'll pass that on to my staff, and the mayor has a lot to do with that and the other department heads. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I had a question, Scott, and it actually popped up on Nextdoor, but about the dog park. Any thoughts with that? They were just talking about wondering when it was going to open, and any ideas with that?
I'm kind of thinking when we go to the yellow phase. So right now we're in orange. And we didn't know we were going to go to orange as fast as we did. So it may be sooner than we think. But when we get to the yellow, maybe a good time to open that again. I'm sure we'll still have social distancing and signage and ask people to be prepared and protect themselves and each other. But I think that would be a good time to really consider opening the off-leash park.
Okay. Nick, I'm going to ask you a question now. So have things tapered off with the growth? Have people, builders, property managers, owners, have they been a little more conservative? What have you seen? I know that you had said that moving forward with hotels and building is still progressing, but what are you seeing?
So things have slowed down, but I have not had anyone say, well, we're not going to do that project now. We've changed our mind. We're not going to do it. The conversations are slowed down a little bit. Lenders slowed down issuing money. It was one of those cautious moments. But nobody was looking to, pull the stopper out of the tub. So I expect things to ease in. There's a lot of disagreement on how quickly that will happen. You get 5 economists together and you'll get 5 different opinions. No one's really seeing the same way. It'll be interesting to see really what'll really drive this at the end will be consumer confidence, which will actually drive this. And if that comes back strong, it'll precipitate other things moving forward as well. But on the back end of this, kind of in the backdrop, is the lenders, like I mentioned before. So when the commercial lenders are feeling good and they start to issue loans and at good rates, that's a really good sign. You'll see that cause additional investment, and it tends to have kind of a domino effect as well.
As far as residentially, I'll just jump real quick. And for what we're seeing residentially is everything that's in the pipeline is moving ahead quickly. The rates are in a 30-year about 2.79, which so the housing, I talked with, well, I won't mention the ones, but several of the housing developers to see where they're at. And they say in general, they see it slowing a little bit out there, but the rates are so good that there's still quite the market for housing and multifamily, and anything that you can build and you can find property in Sandy is still very valuable and wanting to be built on housing wise.
I love to talk about innovation. So again, I'm checking. I don't see any hands raised because I don't want to monopolize the time. But since we have the time, I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the innovations that your teams have come up with that are, they've been triggered, I guess, by where we are currently. But James mentioned one that you feel like you actually might move forward with. And Mayor, same thing. Love just to hear your perspective on how has some innovation been triggered and where might you see that practice continue, because it would be of benefit regardless of COVID-19.
For my department, it's definitely moving forward with electronic reviews and seeing developers not have to bring in great big rolls of paper is a big deal. I mean, they're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on plans. And if we move to electronic fully, which we are doing now, and starting to implement that fully, that's going to be a huge thing for the city and an efficiency for every department involved with the review process, not having 8 sets of papers. And not just that, it's the storage of those papers and finding the file space in the hallways. And then we have to archive those for 7 years with the state. And if you can do that all by electronically, that's going to be a big money saver and efficiencies for both the residents and the developers and the city. The other thing is electronic reviews in the field. How we have found that got the drone just in time, that we've been able to use some drone to do inspections on roofs, for instance, and we're doing some camera inspections and things like that are becoming more acceptable when you go into a home. So it'll make it so you actually don't have to go into a resident's home where you can do those type of reviews, speeding the process up, making it safer, and just more efficient and not having to, go down into someone's basement. So there's a lot of things that are coming out of it, paying the bills. I mean, we worked some efficiencies out of that too, but there's quite a few things that have come out of it just electronically and technology wise that I think the city was geared for. And we can see that even expanding a little bit in the future to make us even more efficient.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can just piggyback on that as well. It's really, it has been the implementation broadly of CityWorks across the city. So it was the reason why we put so much emphasis on it the last 2 years, was because it does allow you to do so much remotely. And whether that was because of an earthquake or a pandemic or just for efficiency's sake, we knew we were going to have to use it at some point. So it's anything that requires hands-on services, right? So yeah, even our fire department has started deploying its drone when there's been calls up Bell Canyon or other remote areas to sort of get out ahead of the responding units. We've had public utilities use our, so every department has a certified drone pilot now, which is really cool. And so public utilities uses them to do some of their well inspections and flyovers. Anyway, I mean, I could go on and on, but the drones have been a huge addition that have cut down on a lot of man hours. But same thing in the field, our public utilities guys are now able to do complete remote entries of all of their logs. And so if you've ever been up to one of our big pump houses, you know the amount of data and logs that are kept daily. We don't have to do that by paper anymore in case it gets wet or destroyed, or but they don't have to come back to the office and upload those and put them in the system for our regulatory purposes. Everything's just in CityWorks now and seamless. And it also then helps catalog all of our assets and inventory. So when everybody from those utilities guys to fleet is putting in all of their records, it starts to alert you proactively. What we're really trying to do is get that predictive analytics that business intelligence is so good about. So that's the purpose of moving to the new website. It's also going to be very intelligent. So it will start to recognize, as long as you haven't turned off your cookies, but it will recognize what parts of Sandy City's website you go to frequently, and it will just start pulling that information for you from the website when you go to Sandy City's website. So it's really cool. You don't have to try to finagle anymore with how do I get to, if you constantly go to Parks and Rec will be the first thing you see when you go to sandy.utah.gov. So anyway, I could go on and on, but the bottom line is, change is always a little, we're all apprehensive at first. And then when you're forced to do it, unfortunately through a pandemic, you realize, oh wait, this actually works. And, you're probably even seeing reports now about our air quality around the country is even dramatically better because of people staying home and working remotely. And anyway, so there's so many benefits to the technology, but really proud of our team for the changes they've implemented over the last 2.5 years. It's been super helpful. So,
and I know the state did a pilot with work from home and had some really, really interesting research data about higher productivity and of course lower impact on the environment, and even accessing parts of rural Utah where people are now able to work and they weren't able to work remotely before. Yeah. Are you seeing the same kind of thing where perhaps there is going to continue some work from home options, remote?
Yeah, so my staff will tell you, I've been trying to push working remotely since we first got here. But like I said, it's hard at first because it's not something we usually have done. And so, but we talk a lot about plus ones with our employees, little added values we can give them that aren't necessarily compensation, but keep them wanting to work here at Sandy, that differentiate us from the other 9 sister cities around us. And one of those things may be a more flexible work schedule or working from home options a few days a week, whatever it may be. And so like I said, maybe we were a little apprehensive about it now. We have to do it now. So everybody, I can't get Nick out of his basement now. Although I do see that his Charmin stack is gone. So he used to flex really hard when we would do cabinet and just have stacks of Charmin all around him while everybody else was hurting. But he's out now. So I may see him at City Hall hawking some industrial rolls pretty soon. But no, everybody's really, I think, taking hold of the work from home, and we'll continue to preach that even once we get back to yellow or green. So.
And perhaps even finding some new systems and processes that they've been somewhat forced to, how do you collaborate, for example, how do you collaborate remotely? And they're finding some ways about that. That's really interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
Other innovations that you want to share?
So in
Marcy.
Parks and Recreation, I'm sorry, Scott Earl.
Mike, did you have something, Mike, or?
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so just real quick, they kind of took me kicking and screaming into the technology world and Teams and Zoom, and because I believe really strongly that you have to have synergy, and in Park and Recreation, you have to be out with your people and referees and lifeguards and people working in parks and things. But there is some huge benefits to Zoom and Teams, and keeping employees off the road. And every time I walk by Dan's or Todd's office, they're on a meeting with a contractor on a project or different things like that, and just kind of coordinating things quickly. You can get everybody into a meeting pretty quick, on Teams and online, versus having everybody drive from different areas of the valley. So there's some benefit to Park and Rec too, with technology. So it's been good.
I don't think we ever want to discount the value of face-to-face. I agree with you, Scott. There's some things that you got to be in the room. But I think that's what is interesting, is people are discovering where there might be opportunities to work, on projects remotely, maximize that time, and then define when is the right time for actual, okay, but this is the kind of project where we need to be in the room together.
Yep.
I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Mike, I know you were starting to say something.
Oh, I think Scott said it best. I was maybe not dragged, but it wasn't wild about going online for a council meeting. I'm kind of old school that way, and our outreach traditionally has been one of our staff members trying to hunt down a public facility that's available after hours or on the weekends, or setting up pop-up tents in the park where we can connect with soccer teams or players. And that takes a lot of work to identify the location, to get the resources. We usually try to be hospitable and get some water, cookies or something. There's a trip to Costco or two, and then somebody has to come out, get in their car and drive to a location. And I'm hoping to use this platform more for council outreach in the future, post-pandemic, post-social distancing. And because I think it's much more convenient for people, but selfishly, it's much more convenient for staff. We have 3 of our most experienced department heads, the mayor, half the council ops director, and when this meeting concludes, we're all home and can be immediately with our families. So this is an innovative platform that I hope to help the council implement more of.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And perhaps there's still a little, some people do appreciate that face-to-face communication as well. So there might still be those opportunities, but I imagine this venue would definitely engage. I'm a big proponent for two-way communication, but this removes a lot of barriers. I think about those, young families who put their kids to bed, and the option of going to a face-to-face town hall is it's just not viable. But they could put their kids to bed and join a virtual meeting and engage with us and share like tonight is a perfect example of a really great idea from Kathy that generated a conversation and we move forward. So I'm excited, Mike. I agree with you. I think this really could open up some great opportunities to engage with others. Anyone want to add to that? All right, so I know we are scheduled to go till 7, but I like to start on time, and I also don't like to meet just for the sake of meeting. So if we don't have any additional questions, I don't see any hands raised or Q&A, but I'm also open to just staying on till 7. I just want to open it up to the group and say what are your thoughts on, do you feel like we've met the needs of those who've joined us today?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
I think so.
So is anyone opposed to ending a few minutes early, or
No.
anyone who's on the call opposed, our attendees?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thanks for
Thanks,
joining. It's been a great evening.
That was very positive. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.